smart, loud-sounding rap as it was, and evidently astonished Hugh, who for the moment seemed disposed to drag his new acquaintance from his saddle. But his face betokening neither malice, triumph, rage, nor any lingering idea that he had given him offence, his eyes gazing steadily in the old direction, and his manner being as careless and composed as if he had merely brushed away a fly, Hugh was so puzzled, and so disposed to look upon him as a customer of almost supernatural toughness, that he merely laughed and cried, "Well done!" then, sheering off a little, led the way in silence. Before the lapse of many minutes the party halted at the Maypole door. Lord George and his secretary, quickly dismounting, gave their horses to their servant, who, under the guidance of Hugh, repaired to the stables. Right glad to escape from the inclemency of the night, they followed Mr. Willet into the common room, and stood warming themselves and drying their clothes before the cheerful fire, while he busied himself with such orders and preparations as his guest's high quality required. As he bustled in and out of the room, intent on these arrangements, he had an opportunity of observing the two travellers, of whom as yet he knew nothing but the voice. The lord, the great personage who did the Maypole so much honour, was about the middle height, of a slender make and sallow complexion, with an aquiline nose and long hair of a reddish brown, combed perfectly straight and smooth about his ears, and slightly powdered, but without the faintest vestige of a curl. He was attired under his greatcoat in a full suit of black, quite free from any ornament, and of the most precise and sober cut. The gravity of his dress, together with a certain lankness of cheek and stiffness of deportment, added nearly 10 years to his age, but his figure was that of one not yet past 30. As he stood musing in the red glow of the fire, it was striking to observe his very bright large eye, which betrayed a restlessness of thought and purpose singularly at variance with the studied composure and sobriety of his mien, and with his quaint and sad apparel. It had nothing harsh or cruel in its expression. Neither had his face, which was thin and mild, and wore an air of melancholy, but it was suggestive of an indefinable uneasiness which infected those who looked upon him, and filled them with a kind of pity for the man, though why it did so they would have had some trouble to explain. Gashford, the secretary, was taller, angularly made, high-shouldered, bony, and ungraceful. His dress, in imitation of his superior, was demure and staid in the extreme, his manner formal and constrained. This gentleman had an overhanging brow, great hands and feet and ears, and a pair of eyes that seemed to have made an unnatural retreat into his head, and to have dug themselves a cave to hide in. His manner was smooth and humble, but very sly and slinking. He wore the aspect of a man who was always lying in wait for something that wouldn't come to pass. But he looked patient, very patient, and fawned like a spaniel dog. Even now, while he warmed and rubbed his hands before the blaze, he had the air of one who only presumed to enjoy it in his degree as a commoner. And though he knew his lord was not regarding him, he looked into his face from time to time, and with a meek and deferential manner smiled as if for practice. Such were the guests whom old John Willet, with a fixed and leaden eye, surveyed 100 times, and to whom he now advanced with a state candlestick in each hand, beseeching them to follow him into a worthier chamber. "For my lord," said John, "it is odd enough, but certain people seem to have as great a pleasure in pronouncing titles as their owners have in wearing them. This room, my lord, isn't at all the sort of place for your lordship, and I have to beg your lordship's pardon for keeping you here, my lord, 1 minute." With this address John ushered them upstairs into the state apartment, which, like many other things of state, was cold and comfortless. Their own footsteps, reverberating through the spacious room, struck upon their hearing with a hollow sound, and its damp and chilly atmosphere was rendered doubly cheerless by contrast with the homely warmth they had deserted. It was of no use, however, to propose a return to the place they had quitted, for the preparations went on so briskly that there was no time to stop them. John, with the tall candlesticks in his hands, bowed them up to the fireplace. Hugh, striding in with a lighted brand and pile of firewood, cast it down upon the hearth and set it in a blaze. John Gruby, who had a great blue cockade in his hat which he appeared to despise mightily, brought in the portmanteau he had carried on his horse and placed it on the floor, and presently all three were busily engaged in drawing out the screen, laying the cloth, inspecting the beds, lighting fires in the bedrooms, expediting the supper, and making everything as cosy and as snug as might be on so short a notice. In less than an hour's time supper had been served and ate and cleared away, and Lord George and his secretary, with slippered feet and legs stretched out before the fire, sat over some hot mulled wine together. "So ends, my lord," said Gashford, filling his glass with great complacency, "the blessed work of a most blessed day." "And of a blessed yesterday," said his lordship, raising his head. "Ah!" And here the secretary clasped his hands. "A blessed yesterday indeed. The Protestants of Suffolk are godly men and true, though others of our countrymen have lost their way in darkness, even as we, my lord, did lose our road to-night. Theirs is the light and glory." "Did I move them, Gashford?" said Lord George. "Move them, my lord! Move them! They cried to be led on against the Papists. They vowed a dreadful vengeance on their heads. They roared like men possessed." "But not by devils," said his lord. "By devils, my lord! By angels!" "Yes, oh surely, by angels, no doubt," said Lord George, thrusting his hands into his pockets, taking them out again to bite his nails, and looking uncomfortably at the fire. "Of course by angels, eh, Gashford?" "You do not doubt it, my lord?" said the secretary. "No, no," returned his lord. "No, why should I? I suppose it would be decidedly irreligious to doubt it, wouldn't it, Gashford? Though there certainly were," he added, without waiting for an answer, "some plaguey ill-looking characters among them." "When you warmed," said the secretary, looking sharply at the other's downcast eyes, which brightened slowly as he spoke, "when you warmed into that noble outbreak, when you told them that you were never of the lukewarm or the timid tribe, and bade them take heed that they were prepared to follow one who would lead them on, though to the very death, when you spoke of 120,000 men across the Scottish border who would take their own redress at any time if it were not conceded, when you cried, 'Perish the Pope and all his base adherents! The penal laws against them shall never be repealed while Englishmen have hearts and hands,' and waved your own and touched your sword, and when they cried, 'No Popery!' and you cried, 'No, not even if we wade in blood!' and they threw up their hats and cried, 'Hurrah, not even if we wade in blood! No Popery, Lord George! Down with the Papists! Vengeance on their heads!' When this was said and done, and a word from you, my lord, could raise or still the tumult, then I felt what greatness was indeed, and thought, when was there ever power like this of Lord George Gordon's?" "It's a great power. You're right, it is a great power," he cried with sparkling eyes. "But, dear Gashford, did I really say all that?" "And how much more!" cried the secretary, looking upwards. "Ah, how much more!" "And I told him what you say about the 140,000 men in Scotland, did I?" he asked with evident delight. "That was bold." "Our cause is boldness. Truth is always bold." "Certainly. So is religion. She's bold, Gashford?" "The true religion is, my lord." "And that's ours," he rejoined, moving uneasily in his seat, and biting his nails as though he would pare them to the quick. "There can be no doubt of ours being the true one. You feel as certain of that as I do, Gashford, don't you?" "Does my lord ask me?" whined Gashford, drawing his chair nearer with an injured air, and laying his broad flat hand upon the table. "Me?" he repeated, bending the dark hollows of his eyes upon him with an unwholesome smile, "who, stricken by the magic of his eloquence in Scotland but a year ago, abjured the errors of the Romish Church, and clung to him as one whose timely hand had plucked me from a pit?" "True. No, no, I didn't mean it," replied the other, shaking him by the hand, rising from his seat, and pacing restlessly about the room. "It's a proud thing to lead the people, Gashford," he added as he made a sudden halt. "By force of reason, too," returned the pliant secretary. "Ay, to be sure. They may cough and jeer and groan in Parliament, and call me a fool and madman, but which of them can raise this human sea and make it swell and roar at pleasure? Not one." "Not one," repeated Gashford. "Which of them can say for his honesty what I can say for mine? Which of them has refused a minister's bribe of £1,000 a year to resign his seat in favour of another? Not one." "Not one," repeated Gashford again, taking the lion's share of the mulled wine between whiles. "And as we are honest, true, and in a sacred cause, Gashford," said Lord George, with a heightened colour and in a louder voice,